Okay, so let's take a look at our toolbox here on the left-hand side. Now, first of all, don't be overwhelmed by the number of tools that we have available. There's a lot going on inside the toolbox here. One neat thing that I can do here is if I hover my mouse over top of a tool, I'm going to get a tiny message, which is referred to as a tooltip, telling me the name of that tool. So I had the move tool there. Now I'm over top of the rectangular marquee tool and the lasso tool and so on. So that's going to kind of help me along, help me on my way as I go here. So I could hover over top of a tool and go, oh, right, the clone stamp tool. And then single clicking on that tool actually activates it for me. So I can flip between my different tools and so on, right? Now, one thing that I want to mention right off the bat here early on is oftentimes people will say, you know, I don't want the crop tool turned on anymore. How do I deactivate the crop tool? Or, you know, I'm on the lasso tool and I don't want to be on the lasso tool anymore. How do I get off the lasso tool? Well, you're always going to have one tool activated at a time, right? So to deactivate the lasso tool, just go and select another tool, right? That's kind of the idea. And for some people, this kind of throws them for a loop. They go, well, I don't want any tools turned on. Well, then what I usually say is go back to the very first tool, the move tool, or sometimes I just call this guy the black arrow tool. I think of the black arrow tool or the move tool, I think of him as the neutral tool, if that makes sense. So in other words, perhaps I'm all finished with the eraser tool. I'm done, you know, working with that guy, and I want to kind of go back to square one, or I kind of want to be at rest for a little while. Well, I would just go back to the move tool. And that might seem like a bit of a pain in the neck, but, you know, using Photoshop for so long, I don't even think about it anymore. It's just second nature. I just go and grab the tool and, you know, that kind of thing. So hopefully that's all good. Now, the next thing that I want to mention is some of the tools, not all the tools, but some of the tools, have a tiny black arrow in the bottom right corner. Do you see that in there? There's a bunch of them here, right at the top anyway. Now, what that little triangle or that little arrow indicates is that there's more tools hidden underneath this particular tool. How do I get to them? Well, if I click and hold with my mouse, I'm going to get a tool flyout, which exposes the other tools that are hidden underneath the rectangular marquee tool. So once again, all I do is just click and hold with my mouse, and I get this tool flyout, if you will. I can go and grab, for example, the elliptical marquee tool. I always just call this guy the circle selection tool, but anyway, we'll talk about these guys in just a little while. So once again, you might want to pause the video and just explore around a little bit on your own. For example, the Eyedropper tool has a whole array of additional tools hidden underneath them there. So all of a sudden, the toolbox just expanded. There's even more tools available to us here than we initially thought, right? And again, you'll get used to where tools are hidden and, you know, which tools are where and this sort of thing. A neat trick that I can use if I want to go through the different tools that are available to me in a flyout, but I don't want to have to actually click and hold. Maybe you're finding the click and hold to be a little bit too, you know, labor intensive. What you can do is on the Mac side here, I'm going to hold down the Option key, or on the Windows side, hold down Alt and then click on the tool. And either Alt or Option clicking simply cycles you through the tools that you have available to you underneath that little flyout menu. Just a neat little trick that you might want to try out there on your own. And this kind of delves into power mode user, but you might want to jot that down in your notes. It's a neat little trick to remember. Here's another neat little trick that I want to show you. You may have noticed that as you're hovering over top of your different tools, not only do you get this tooltip, but did you notice that there's a single character in brackets at the end of the tooltip? So for example, crop tool there had the C inside the bracket there. There he is. Now, what that means is that's a keystroke shortcut. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the C key on my keyboard. I'm not holding down Shift or Control or Command or Option or anything like that. Just C all by itself. So I tap the C key and that flips me over to the crop tool. Now these are called keystroke equivalents or keystroke shortcuts. I could hit the V key for the black arrow tool. That's another one that I use all the time. So most of the tools inside the toolbox have keystroke equivalents. And I'll admit, I don't know them all, but I know the ones that I use all the time. M for the marquee tool, L for lasso, H for the hand tool all the way down towards the bottom, the Z key for the zoom tool, P for pen, and so on, right? I won't bore you to death with all of the ones that I know here, but anyway, you might want to use those guys as well. All right, now two more quick things to show you here. Way down towards the bottom of the toolbox, we have a color area. We have our foreground color and our background color. We'll talk about working with color later on. And the very last thing that I want to show you, very simply, is this double-headed arrow right up at the top of the toolbox. I can click on that guy to collapse down my toolbox like this, or click back on him to give me this single column toolbox. So if you want the double column or the single column, it's really entirely up to you.